You know the oldest light in the universe? That faint afterglow from the Big Bang? Well, what if it's not just an afterglow? What if it's actually a message? Today, we're diving into a really mind-bending theory that says the universe's baby picture might just contain a hidden receipt, a record of its own creation.
So let's start here. What you're looking at is a representation of the cosmic microwave background, or the CMB. You really can think of it as the universe's first ever baby picture, a literal snapshot of the entire cosmos when it was just 380,000 years old. For decades, this map has been our best tool for understanding how everything we know got its start.
But here's where things get wild. A new idea, called the Holographic Entropic Receipt Theory, is suggesting something pretty radical. It's saying this ancient light isn't just a passive snapshot. Nope, it's a record, a literal receipt that documents the single most fundamental transaction in the history of the universe.
Okay, a cosmic receipt. What does that even mean? Well, to understand it, we first have to look at two huge competing forces that this theory says have been shaping our universe since moment one. It's this constant cosmic battle between order and chaos.
On one side of the ring, you've got coherence. This is the force of order, of structure, of information. It's the reason anything complex can exist at all. And on the other side, you've got entropy. That's the universe's relentless push towards disorder, decay, and eventually just a state of boring, bland equilibrium. The whole story of the universe, according to this theory, is the struggle between these two.
So what is this holographic receipt? According to the theory, it's the permanent mark left behind from that very first epic clash. It's like the scar that formed when the universe's initial perfect order started to break down into the messy, chaotic universe we live in today. And the proponents of this theory claim that scar is printed right onto that baby picture of the universe.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This is a fascinating idea, for sure. But is there any actual evidence for it? Well, this is where things get really interesting. Scientists dug into the CMB data, looking for very specific patterns, and they found something that is incredibly hard to just write off as random chance.
The key, it turns out, is in something called acoustic peaks. See, in the early, super-hot, soupy universe, sound waves were literally rippling through all that plasma. Then, as the universe cooled down, those waves were basically frozen in place, leaving their signatures all over the CMB. The theory hones in on these peaks, almost like they're a message written in ancient sound.
And this is the mic drop moment. When researchers analyzed the polarization data from these peaks, they found a signal-to-noise ratio somewhere between 9 and 12 sigma. Now, if you're not a physicist, let me be clear, that number is absolutely staggering. In physics, a 5 sigma discovery is the gold standard. It's Nobel Prize territory. This is way beyond that.
Let me put that into perspective. A 9 to 12 sigma result means you're talking about a confidence level of over 99.9999999%. The chance of this pattern being some random cosmic fluke is, well, it's pretty much zero. Whatever is causing this pattern in the oldest light in the universe, it is real.
So what is this signal? Well, the theory's proponents have a very specific name for it. They call it the strongest empirical evidence for stable entropic memory imprints at cosmic scale. In other words, they're saying this is proof that the early universe actually stored a memory of its own structure, a memory of its fight to stay ordered.
And that just opens up this massive question, right? If we go along with this, if we accept that this pattern isn't just noise, that the universe really did imprint a memory of itself onto its first light, well, what form does that memory take? What's the fundamental geometry of this information? The answer that the theory proposes is just beautiful. It's not some bizarre, complex shape that we can't wrap our heads around. It's a form we actually see everywhere in nature, from something as simple as a smoke ring all the way up to the magnetic fields of entire planets.
It's the torus, a donut shape. But it is so important to not think of this as just a static object. It's a dynamic pattern of flow. It's a self-sustaining, self-referencing system. You could call it nature's perfect feedback loop.
And this shows the process perfectly. You've got energy and information flowing in through one pole, circulating through that dense core, and then radiating out through the other pole. And then, this is the magic part. It loops all the way back around to re-enter the system. It's this continuous, self-recycling flow, and it's a perfect model for how a system can maintain its own order and coherence.
So what happens when that perfect flow gets disrupted? According to the theory, when a system's coherence, its order, collapses into entropy, which often happens at that tight pinch point in the core, an energy byproduct gets released. You can think of it like waste heat or the fallout from the system losing its perfect balance.
So we have this pattern imprinted on the cosmos, and we have a proposed shape for it, the torus. But how does this one single shape manage to work at every possible scale without just falling apart or getting blurry? The theory gives us a surprisingly simple way to think about this.
Think about computer images for a second, a JPEG, right? It's made of a grid of tiny squares, of pixels. When you try to scale it up, it gets all blurry and blocky because you're just making the squares bigger. But a vector graphic, an SVG, that's totally different. It stores information as mathematical relationships, as lines and curves. You can scale it up to the size of a planet, and it just redraws itself with perfect clarity every time. The theory is that the universe stores information like a vector file, as pure geometry, not as pixels. And the implication of this kind of scalable geometry is just staggering. The theory proposes that this exact same toroidal pattern exists at every single level of reality. We can see it in the spin cloud of an electron, in the magnetic field generated by the human heart, in Earth's entire magnetosphere, all the way up to the magnetic field of a galaxy. The idea is that these are all nested feedback loops, each one a little receipt of coherence tucked inside a bigger one. So let's just zoom all the way out and try to put this all together. If this theory holds any water, we aren't just looking at some strange, curious pattern in the sky. We might be looking at the fundamental blueprint for how everything in the universe gets organized. The main takeaway is this. The torus isn't just a shape, it's a process. It's a blueprint for a self-looping flow of energy, a way to maintain order against the constant pull of chaos, and a method for storing information as scalable geometry. The theory claims this pattern applies to everything, from the tiniest particles to the biggest galaxies. Some proponents even suggest it could be a model for understanding consciousness itself. And that really brings us to the final and most profound question. If a single, elegant pattern of energy flow, this toroidal feedback loop, is the fundamental building block for galaxies, for atoms, and maybe even for consciousness, then what does that make us? Are we too just a really complex expression of this universal blueprint, constantly receiving and emitting information in this cosmic dance between order and chaos? It's a pretty powerful thought to leave you with. Thanks for joining me.